It's the greatest podcast in the history of the world.
It goes high up and under the full foot.
He's taken a ripper! He has a bounce, he crosses 50, he pins the ears back, and he drills the goal!
All the latest news and views from around the VAFA.
Here's the big man!
The big guy!
He's done it again! This bloke extracts some of the finest!
All thanks to MECWACARE, proud partner of the VAFA.
Makes a name for himself with these long bombs from outside the arc. It's a long bomb from outside the arc!
This is for the love of the game.
You can tweet that and hashtag it bloody good.
Hey everybody, welcome along to For the Love of the Game. Thanks to our friends at MECWACARE, looking after more than 16,500 people across Victoria every single week. Jason Bennett alongside Paddy Grindlay, and not the dulcet tones of Joseph Aloysius Pignataro this week, Patrick.
Yeah, no Joey this week. He's probably gone down with the flu that's travelling around Melbourne at this point of the year. Hello, Jace. Good to see you. We've got a very, very special guest who's filling in for Joey.
I think we might have upgraded.
It's the three-time Coach of the Year, the two-time Premiership coach, Hugo Higginbotham. Hugo, welcome.
Hello, boys. Great to be here. And look, what big little shoes I have to fill.
With Joseph, yes, absolutely. And you guys were out at Uni Blues and Old Zabs. We'll get to that game shortly, but the headline of the week is Old Haileybury.
Yeah.
And we talked about them last week, Paddy, about, are they the story of Premier Men so far in 2025? Well, they went out to TH King on Saturday and made history. According to Plugger Lynch, the St Kevin's coach, he believes they are a genuine contender and they have announced themselves. And it is our pleasure this morning to have the Old Haileybury coach, Daniel Ward, join us. G'day, Wardy.
Morning, boys. How are we?
Oh, very well. Thank you, mate. Tell us about Saturday, both the build-up and then the execution. Was the history of winning at the TH King for the first time mentioned at all in the build-up? Because not a lot of teams do that. It's tough to do.
I think we quickly skated it over it, but the main part of getting out there was the respect that we had for St Kev's and the dynasty, if you like, that they've built over the last, call it 7-8 years, and we went through that. So, in the last 2 to 3 weeks, even though we've been getting wins, we've given up some soft goals with some undisciplined sort of stuff. So that was part of what we spoke about, in that we can't afford to give up soft goals against St Kev's because you'll get hurt. They're well drilled, they're well coached by Plugger, and so we just had to tighten some things up and yeah, hopefully the boys have got the belief in themselves now, which will hold us in good stead for the rest of the year.
St Kevin's always never go down without a fight. They come at you time and time again, and they did as expected. You were 3 goals up at three-quarter time. Could have been more. You kicked 1-5 in that third term. So with the breeze, I know you mentioned to me that you kicked like 4-10 with the breeze in those 2 quarters. But 3 goals up, what was your message at three-quarter time, knowing that St Kevin's were going to come late?
Yeah, we definitely left some opportunities on the table, and the game was looking the way we wanted it to. The final piece of the puzzle was just getting that scoreboard pressure. So, 3 goals wasn't going to be enough against St Kev's to hang on with the scoring in. So, we didn't. We basically just needed to, change our game style a little bit. With local footy, you need to change your game style sometimes with, quarter to quarter. So the message was about keep playing. It was still one-on-one sort of brand. There was no extra numbers or anything like that. And credit to St Kev's, they took some risks, especially through the middle of the ground, and got the ball going their way and kicked the first couple. And I looked at my assistants and thought, geez, this is going to be a long 20, 25 minutes to get through. But, pleasantly from the group, they really responded. We kicked 3 of our own, which we needed to score. And, just like I said before, just really great belief for the group that we can get tested by a quality outfit like that and respond, which was great.
So, Wardy, just noticing that fourth quarter you were talking about, mate, the St Kevin's started to get on top in the clearances there. Behind the ball, Hugo Noziaro, was he chopping a lot of that off on those entries?
No, Hugo we actually used inside on the weekend. Okay. So, so we'd spoken before about how we'd use Hugo back. We we've been missing Ollie Hott in the last couple of weeks, and Matthias Rose with an ankle. So Hugo's gone back inside. It was good for us on the weekend. No, it was. I thought two of our vice captains were really strong in Will Paul and Dara Seckle behind the ball, and Hugo Lynch does a great job on the big gorillas every week, and that was the same with the job that he did on Paddy Kerr. So, our three keys down there, just have to fight it out one-on-one at times, and I thought all three of them were great to, lay the platform for our smaller guys, Mitch Kirkwood-Scott and Liam Kirkwood-Scott. James Connell's in really good form at the moment, and Liam Wood. So those seven down there did a really good job. We were missing Ned Conway, who's been a really good acquisition for us this year off half-back, and he hurt himself Thursday night along with Noah Higgins. So, in the past, when we lose two like that on a Thursday night before a big clash, that would really affect us. But I'm really proud of the group for what they produced on Saturday.
Woody, we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago when you took on D-Lar about the differences from 2023 to this year. And as I look across at the comparison, at this point in 2023, you're 1-6. Your only win had come over the Blacks at the University Oval. This time you're 5-2. You've got wins away against SKOB, a win away against the Blues last week in a tough one, and you've also pushed the Zavs, who've been really good, to 7 points at Toorak Park. What have been the key differences this year as compared to 2023?
Yeah, it's probably a mixture of things. Probably the main three would be sort of game style. We tinkered with a few things when we went back, and we found something that works for us and our group. The belief I've mentioned a couple of times already.
Yep.
I think I have the belief in this group, but it doesn't matter if they don't believe in it. And as a coach, sometimes you're a salesman and you're selling the message of what's coming up and what we can achieve. And if half the group doesn't believe what you're selling, you're in a bit of strife. So I think there's greater belief in the group and the experience that they now have. And then the final one is probably the simplest one, is just talent. It makes a coach. We had 7 VFL boys run around on the weekend.
Yep.
A lot of our leadership group and guys that are full-time have had, VFL time and have played high-level footies. So, Ollie Houghton, for example, that we've missed the last couple of weeks, we're getting back this week. He's sort of fallen in our lap, and he's been an added bonus, and you don't get talent like that walking through the door too often. So, we've been lucky in the way that, we've had things fall our way with the talent we have available, but we've also created a culture where, boys want to come play with our footy club, which is great.
Now, Wardy, you spoke about belief, and there's one young lad who's got plenty of that, and we love calling him DANI DE STEFANO. I see he was around the goals again. Is he a bit of a barometer for your side, mate?
Yeah, the little master. He's you love coaching Dre. He came across to us when he was maybe 16, 17. So he's been around our program the last sort of 2 or 3 years, and obviously been at Box Hill last year and this year. And, I think Box Hill and Hawthorn, there's not too many of his sort of size and small forwards that are out injured or anything at the moment. So he's finding it a little bit difficult to get a game there, but he always turns up with a great attitude with us, and he's exciting. The boys love having him in the team, and he kicked a couple on the weekend. One of them was pretty crucial in the last quarter. So he's a guy, Hugo, you would have seen him against D-Lar that kicked 4 in 10 minutes. He's a guy that can do that at any time, and being a little bloke, he cops a fair bit of scrutiny from the opposition, and they get into him, and which you do with your better players. But I'm wrapped with how he's going at the moment for sure.
What do you mention that you tweaked your game plan a little bit and found something that worked for you? What is it?
Oh, I won't give it all away, Jace, but it's more about probably taking territory a little bit. I think we've fallen into a habit in the past of probably going backwards a little bit too much, and it seems simple, but under the pump you can go backwards a fair bit. So the way we structure up, we want that forward momentum, and that was the case in the last quarter against Uni Blues. That really helped us. It's little simple things, and then how we defend behind the ball whilst we're doing that. So, the great thing with majority of our group is we've been playing together for a fair while now, and we know what's expected of how we want to play. And look, I'm biased. I'm really lucky in the captain that I have in Brady Seckle. He truly is like an on-field coach, and if someone isn't in the right position or not doing the right thing, he'll let them know. I've had times this year where I've written notes on my board for what I'll say at quarter time, and 4 of the 5 things Brady's already addressed out there. So it's, I'm really lucky in that way. He's been crucial for me. And then he's got, 8 leaders. I'm someone that likes to have a bigger sort of leadership group. So he's got 8 leaders below him that sort of help to run things as well. And they've got great confidence in how we play as well. And, that makes a big difference.
The road ahead for you guys, St Bernard's. Unfortunately, you've got to play them at home at Princes Park. St Bernard's haven't lost away at all this year. Would have been better off just saying, hey, we'll go play them at the Snake Pit. But next week you've got St Bernard's coming up, then obviously the bye, then Collegians, and then Old Scotch in the road ahead, Wardy. In terms of taking it week by week, obviously, that's the classic coaches.
Yep.
But if you break it down, are you at a point of the season now where you are looking at your next block of games, or are you just completing the one that you've sort of got to the end to now?
Yeah, it's a good question. No, we're not at that block yet. We did have a look at this block. That it was a crucial sort of month for us, and we've reeled off 4 in a row, which has been great for the group. And the last piece of the puzzle was St Bernard's this week. So I didn't even really know who we were playing after the break. I hadn't looked that far ahead. It was it was getting through this period before the King's birthday off. So yeah, we won't look any further than St Bernard's this week. Obviously, they had a tough day last week, and Cess will have them, ready to respond, and they've played some good footy this year, so we're under no illusions of how tough this Saturday will be, and that the opposition every week is at this level, as we know, is fantastic. So yeah, we look forward to welcoming them out to St Bernard's, and hopefully they don't continue their away record, and we can get the 4 points.
And we're looking forward to it as well. You'll see it live streaming on vafa.com.au from 1:55 on Saturday. Old Haileybury and St Bernard's. Wardy, thanks for your time. Good luck.
Thanks for the chat, boys. Cheers.
Always great to catch up with Daniel Ward, doing great things at Old Haileybury this year, and they are indeed firming as a team to watch in 2025. Well, the afternoon's other thriller on Saturday was at Melbourne University Oval. You 2 fine gentlemen were there as Old Zabs once again found a way to come from behind and pinch a late win. This time it was over University Blues. It was goal for goal early. The Blues had the upper hand, but then kept turning it over. Charlie Cotter kicked a goal at the 23-minute mark. They led by 2 points at quarter time, then kicked 4 of the next 5 goals, Hugo, got out to a 20-point break, and it looked like they were just on the verge of maybe cracking the game open.
Yeah, they certainly were. I think it was that quarter, Paddy, as well, when a young guy, Jeremy Goddard, remember he went off?
Yeah, Jez, yeah.
And I really felt that changed the flow of the game a little bit. And that was when Zabs were able to get back in and get a couple back late in that quarter as well. But I think that was something, and he'll obviously be out for a few weeks now.
Yeah, it was a head knock, yeah. So he suffered a concussion, so he'll miss the next couple of weeks. But yeah, kicked a really important goal as a sort of roving small forward. Goddard, long-time watchers of the Blues might remember him playing more of a midfield role in previous seasons. He's since moved forward a bit. Probably to open up some space for Darcy Churgwin in the guts, who we'll get to because he was dominant. 38 disposals, if memory serves me correctly, and a goal. But yeah, that felt like the turning point because they didn't quite have the ground ball presence that they did in the early parts of the game.
Yeah, look, he was playing that pressure forward role. When you've got 3 big players down there who take big marks, and if they don't take the mark, it hits the ground. They don't get outmarked, and that's where that pressure player comes in.
Sterling Phipps-Parsons kicked a goal after the siren at halftime to make it 13 points. So Zabs managed to get themselves back into the game. The Blues, through. Charlie Cotter added another 2 goals in the opening 10 minutes of the third term. Nice 18th birthday for him, coming up with 3 goals and a wonderful performance, his 4th senior game. But once again, Zabs managed to just hang in there and stay close. Phipps, Parsons and Spirali are both goaled in time on. They got within a kick again at the last change. The Blues, Paddy, had a few chances early but just couldn't find the middle. The first goal eventually went the other way. Charlie McIsaac walked into an open goal, made it a 3-point game at the 9-minute mark. Blues were controlling territory, but just couldn't find that goal to establish the buffer again.
Yeah, it was 5 behinds in the early part of the quarter, Hugo, which really cost them dearly, and they had good opportunities. Geordie LaCava had a snap-on goal from directly in front and missed. James Stewart had a set shot and goal that he'd usually kick straight over the goal umpire's hat. He hit the inside of the post. So that's the difference, I think, for the Blues, because eventually, as you'll mention, I'm sure, Jace, that the Zabs came over the top of them late. But the previous week where the Blues were run over by Old Haileybury, it felt like they went to sleep a little bit more. I suppose you can't emphatically fall asleep, but they really dropped off late against the Bloods. This time they actually did have the scoring opportunities. It was just the lack of polish at the end that cost them.
Yeah, it certainly was. They had plenty of looks at it. I mean, the Zabs bench were frantic at those first couple of minutes because couldn't get it past halfway.
Yeah.
It was just all the Blues. But then it started to change a little bit. And one man who was absolutely crucial in willing his side when they needed him the most was Fisher.
Yep.
He was amazing. He's in everything. He's like another coach on the ground. He directs the traffic. He encourages the young guys, gives them a spray if they don't do what he's asking them. But he was huge.
And he had Hamish Youngins wearing him in the midfield all day. So I noticed, you picked this up, Hugo, that he got shoved to about half forward and he had the most marks on the ground in the fourth quarter. Took 5 marks in the final term alone, 7 disposals, 6 of those are kicks, 3 inside 50s. So just turned the game for them across the front half.
Yeah, it was. They were definitely falling down there as well. They were getting the ball up there. Entries were very high for some reason.
Yep.
It's a weird ground to play at as well. But a really good thing in coaching that I was told a long time ago is you try and assess where the problem is on the ground and you put your best player there because they can turn a game for it, which it absolutely did. I mean, he kicked the ceiling goal at the end. And you know, he's just the Skins player of the day. Yeah. But when they were really down in that third quarter, you could just see that he started things. Yeah. He was involved in every forward passage that they had, and he's such a creative player.
Nick Guiney kicked a goal at the 22-minute mark of the last quarter, put Zabs in front for the first time since time on in the opening term. Then Campbell Lane kicked another one 6 minutes later to give him some breathing room. James Stewart came up with a goal at the 30-minute mark to give them some hope, and there was maybe a chance that they'd be able to pinch it back late. But then a fantastic clutch mark to Alex Tregar in the dying seconds denied the hosts. And just as they did against the Bloods in round 3, Zabs pulled off another late steal to protect second spot. Sam Fisher, Campbell Lane, influential as always, 34 and 31 touches respectively. You mentioned Darcy Churgwin, 38 touches, 16 clearances for the Blues. And I mentioned Charlie Cotter kicked 3 goals in a promising display in just his 4th senior game on his 18th birthday. Matt Smith was gutted after this one, as you could imagine. Hugely disappointing result. He said, one that I really feel for the players as well. They played such a great brand of footy for a long time, just weren't able to reward themselves at critical times of the game to ultimately secure the win. And that 1-5 in the last quarter, including 2 posters, proved costly. But Hugo, he did say they should take a lot of confidence from the match and can carry the form through. And it's a good point. It's disappointing to lose, but you did mention the supply. And in previous years, supply has been the problem. They've had the guns up forward, the Stewarts and the Grimleys, that have been able to finish off the work. They just haven't been able to get it in there. So it feels like they may be rectifying their system and their method up the ground a little bit. It's now that last piece, that connection piece inside 50, and then just simply kicking the goals.
Well, it was match defining, unfortunately. And we called the game from near where Matt was. After the game, he sat there stone-faced for 30, 45 seconds. You could see how much that hurt him as well, because he's a player's coach. He loves the players. You can see the players love him as well. But I did notice, Paddy, out on the ground, when the tide changed a little bit, you could almost see it in the Blues' faces. It was almost like, oh, no, not again.
Yep.
You could just see that. And footy's a game of pressure, and now the pressure builds a little bit more, because I know they did speak about, this is season on the line sort of stuff. And was that a little bit too much pressure in their heads? I don't know. It's a frightening place to be inside a player's head.
Yeah, look, it's their 4th really tight one. Including the Old Haileybury result, which doesn't look like a close one on paper, but they were ahead for most of that game and the Bloods had to lap them. So they've gone 1-3 in those games. Of course, the goal after the siren defeat at the University Oval back in round 1. So the memory is still fresh. You are right. They did look to be, I think, cramping more significantly than the Zabs. Nick Conway was one. He's one of the leading intercept markers in the competition and had a really, really good day. Was one of their better players along with Marty Gleeson and Mitch Lloyd in the defensive half. But there was a point probably in the third quarter where we thought he'd seriously hurt himself, but it was just the cramp and the heat in that contest that was affecting him. So that might be one thing that they'll look at as this year continues.
And Zabs, well, we talk about pressure. They've now pinched another one late, so they're going to have enormous belief anytime they're challenged from in the weeks ahead to know that doesn't matter how dire the situation might be, they've got means and ways to get themselves back in a game and steal a win.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that you can draw on later in the season when your back's against the wall. But you know, Dan Donati, he's a very, very good coach.
Yep.
If you're continually winning games by such small margins, when you're behind, when your back's against the wall, it means he's got a great read on the game. He can see where the problems are. He can make a move here or a move there. And he said that his midfielders needed to lift. And we asked him after the game if he put it on him. He said he doesn't like to individualise, but sometimes you don't have to individualise. If you mention an area, so mids, and you look at them and they know. They know.
Yep.
And then that was the difference in the game.
Old Brighton continued their perfect season. A comfortable win over Collegians at Harry Trott. The Tunners always in control. They rocketed out of the gates. They had 10 shots to 1 in the opening term. They led 7-3 to a goal at the first change. But interestingly, Hugo, it was off the back of their intercept game rather than getting first hands on the footy around stoppage. Lions actually controlled clearances in that first term, 17 clearances to 8. But gave up 7 goals to 1, which is highly unusual. But Old Brighton took 11 intercept marks for the term. 11 for the term in one quarter. Old Brighton, 11 intercept marks. They continually repelled Collegians' attacking forays, punished them on the counter with efficient use themselves. And from there, the Lions were always chasing the game. They did it with energy, but didn't get full reward on the scoreboard. Narrowly won the second term. Held the Tunners goalless in the third, so credit to them for that. But then 5 goals to 1 from the ladder leaders saw them ultimately run away to a 51-point win. The idea of having 11 intercept marks for the term, having that amount of dominance and being outplayed 7 goals to 1, that's extraordinary numbers.
It is, and it's probably what they do after they get that intercept mark as well. They've got a really good switch or an inside 45. Their foot skills are amazing.
Yeah.
I've seen them a few times this year. They don't kick the ball very long, but they kick it very accurately, and they're an amazing run and carry, especially through half forward. So that's probably the difference. If you've got that many intercepts, maybe the ball's coming in a little bit too high, not to the advantage of a player, maybe just to an area. And if you've got good players who back themselves in, come off their forward, and then, read that ball, and that's confidence as well.
Also speaks volumes to, well, you mentioned confidence, but also system and adaptability. If you're getting smashed that badly out of the middle and the other team is just getting that amount of forward forays, for Brighton just to be able to crank up their intercept game to 11 and find another way to stabilise the game, not only stabilise the game, but actually take control in a different means, that speaks volumes to their ability and their adaptability as a team.
Well, you look there, and this is the crazy thing about Old Brighton, is that if you have a look at the Premier Data stats, they actually rank as the number 1 team for all the inside stats, so the likes of disposals, contested possessions, but they're also the number 1 intercept team in the competition. So they're able to have the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
One player I wanted to shout out from this contest is a fella by the name of Max Pinchbeck, who is the tackling machine, the Terminator on the inside. He's averaging, I think, a tick over 14 tackles a game.
He's laid straight week.
He's laid 81 this season. The next best in the competition is his teammate Campbell Walker with 50.
Yep.
So there's a 31 tackle differential.
3 weeks in a row he's had 20-plus tackles, which is unbelievable.
He started the year with a really quiet, 8 tackles, 4 tackles, and then he's gone 13, 11, 20, 25, 20. So who doesn't mind the wet weather stuff does Max Pinchbeck.
Old Brighton had 7 of the 8 ball winners, top 8 ball winners on the ground, incidentally.
Yeah.
Tom Fisher and Harry Hill had 65, 23 tackles and 20 clearances between them. They are just deep.
I just want to say on Fisher and Harry Hill that this is a Brighton midfield that lost Nick Pavlou in the off-season. And I would say that Nick Pavlou was in Woodrow medal form at times in 2024. He's gone out of that team. I'd almost say that Harry and Tom would be the best 1-2 punch for midfield in the competition. Like you look across the stats, they're consistently in top 10s in all sorts of columns, disposals, contested possessions, hard ball gets, clearances, inside 50s, tackles, the whole works. And then Tom Burnell and Felix Flockhart, who pop along there, do a really good job as well.
That says a lot for the Collegians midfield, though.
Yep.
For them to have that dominance at the start of the first quarter, and then
not touch the footy.
81 tackles so far. There's players who would not have 81 for their whole career. And imagine week in, week out, that's got to be starting to take a physical toll on your body too. That's a lot of impact.
He's a big boy, Max Pinchbeck. He's a very solid operator. Collegians are interesting. They're 2-5. You look at their win-loss record and think, oh, gee, they're struggling. They're actually sitting 9th now after this loss. But 3 of those losses have been really tight ones at home. Their season could be quite different. I get the feeling, and I don't know if you agree, Hugo, they're much better than a 2-5 team. They just haven't quite been able to put the pieces together in those close games. We talk about Zabs and their ability to win the close ones. Collegians haven't so far. But it sort of feels like if they can just add a piece or two, it might start to click, and they are a team that's potentially able to get on a run.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're coached by one of the greatest blokes too, Geordie.
Yes,
And I really feel for him because we've seen a few of them, Paddy. It's something that we've got the bye coming up, okay? So maybe they need to have a look and just change shape a little bit. I know the couple of times when we've called them, they do love rolling extras up to the contest.
Yep.
And what happens is, and then another one goes, and another one goes, they win the ball, and they lack an avenue to goal. So that's something it's pretty easily fixed too.
Yeah, they're yet to win a game at home as well, Collegians, so they need to figure that one out.
Old Scotch's premiership defence roared back to life. A thumping win over St Bernard's at the Snake Pit. The reigning champs dominated from the get-go. They effectively intercepted the Snow Dogs in the opening term, then hit targets themselves. The return of James Tarrant from the VFL, huge. He took 4 marks inside 50 and 3 goals in the opening term alone as the Cardinals clunked an incredible 9 marks inside 50 in the first quarter and kicked 8 goals from turnover in the first quarter and rocketed away to 51-point lead at quarter time. Snow Dogs even the game up in general play in the second term, but another 4 turnover goals proved costly. The Dogs were going at just 37% by foot in that second term. They were 69 points down at the major break. They finally got a bit of control on the inside in the third term, but again, more efficient ball use hurt them. Cardinals kicked 4 goals to 3, and in the end, an 80-point win to the 2024 Premiers, and it's a critical victory. It draws them back within a game in percentage of the top 4 as they continue to add some experience into their newcomers, and James Tarrant's return also freed up Will Clark. They kicked 5 goals apiece. Matthew Watson kicked 5 of St Bernard's 8 goals. His good form continues. Max Suttle, great down back for the winners, 25 disposals, 12 marks, 8 rebound 50s. And he, Jack Brown and Charlie Cormack just continually turn the Snow Dogs around. They had 14 intercept marks between them. So a great performance from Old Scotch. And suddenly they've roared back to life after a bit of a sluggish start with VFL and injured players being out. They just get a couple of pieces of their puzzle back and things start to click.
Yeah, I look at 13 marks inside 50 between Clark and Tarrant for 10 goals, which is pretty much the story. And Hugo, this is kind of how they won their premiership. It's the big boys up the front who can just mark the ball and they kick accurately. I'm really happy for our man, the extractor, Will Clark, because he's been battling in a lone hand for the last couple of weeks, obviously with James Tarrant playing at North Melbourne VFL and Ryan Valentine now at Coburg VFL. It's great for him to get some reward on the scoreboard and a running mate to kick goals alongside him.
Absolutely. Great nickname, that too. But you want to have a look as well. That's 10 goal kickers for the day as well. So it's not just those 2 guys up forward that are doing that. That's a big spread. You know, you only have 6 in your forward line. That means mids, probably even halfbacks are coming down. And that's something that will hold them in really good stead moving forward.
And conversely, St Bernard's, even though they're sitting in 5th position at the moment, some worrying signs.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's almost a burn the tape one for Steve Alessio's side. That's been up for a little while. I probably felt that they were overachieving maybe, considering their close wins. So this is maybe one where they come back to earth a bit. Not the worst thing in the world, though, Hugo, to get a lesson from the reigning premiers before the bye that you can learn from.
No, absolutely. But Matt Watson wanted to kick 5 again. Has he kicked a point yet? I know he hadn't kicked a point for
at one point,
so far, but
well, I'll chase that up while we go through the next game.
One of the concerns for Bernard's, I think, would be that's an 80-point loss. They were well beaten by Zabs, who ended up beating them by 6 goals, but they were played off the park that day. And Old Brighton as well beat them by 9 goals, and they were never in that game either. So unlike Collegians, the opposite almost is the case for St Bernard's, is that they've had a few teams get a hold of them this year.
Yeah, and they're a young group as well. They've got a lot of guys coming through from the school and things like that, and that happens some days with your younger players. You know, they get worried out of the contest a little bit, and it's likewise, it's an above-the-shoulders game a lot as well.
Final game of round 7 was at Waverley Oval. University Blacks won back-to-back games for the first time this season. They took care of DLAR by 70 points. DLAR actually had the better of proceedings in the opening term. They held Blacks goalless. They led by 16 points at the first change, but after that, it swung savagely. Blacks kicked 16 goals to 2 after quarter time. They kicked 6 goals for 1 in the second term to hit the front. They led by 14 points at the major break. DLAR stabilised a little bit in the third. They held Blacks to 3 goals, found 1 themselves, but then the floodgates swung wide open in that last term. Dale Bauer's men rammed on 7 unanswered goals. Vital win for them. It boosted their percentage. They've jumped from 9th to 7th. They're now a game clear of the drop zone. Only 1 game out of the top 4 all of a sudden, whereas a couple of weeks ago we're starting to say, geez, Blacks are having a bit of a hard time, but they're going to need to find a bit of form and turn things around. Well, in the last fortnight they have.
Yes, no, amazing turnaround that. But I did speak to Bill Tyson, head of foot there at DLAR. He did say it was extremely windy there on the weekend, and that is a wind-affected ground. So that might have something to do with the score there. Now, another thing too, they're a very young side too, DLAR. What do we play with? Round 7 now, coming to round 8. They get tired.
Yep. Pleasingly for the Blacks, they got some scoreboard reward for effort. We spoke to Campbell Moorfield last week, saying that's one of their great frustrations is that at times they don't capitalise when they're in control of the game. But this week they shared the load. Matthew Grocott, Thomas and Clare and Louis Vesio all kicked 4 goals each, which is a healthy spread. And then Campbell, the VAFA's hottest swingman, he bobbed up, kicked another couple as well. James Clark, who he sung the praises of last week, had another 35 touches and 10 clearances. Xavier Chalkley had his best game of the season. He had 34 touches. Luke Healy was D-Lar's main winner up forward. He kicked 3 goals as D-Lar keeps searching for their breakthrough win. But for Dale Bauer, he'd be delighted. It's probably the first time this year they've put 4 quarters together.
And it's probably the first time this year that Lou Vesio's head's stopped bleeding because he had it patched up about 3 or 4 times over the opening month. So 4 goals from 21 touches from him, huge. Campbell Moorfield up front, it's really working for him. He has played forward before a few years back, I believe, for the Blacks, but has since made a name for himself as one of top flight's premier intercept defenders. So 2 snags from him. He might have a permanent home, and Daniel Harford might have a job at trying to fit him into the front 6 for Big V selection.
From D-Lar, as they obviously one more game before they head to the break, but sitting at 0-7, obviously they know where they are. Nick Highland has been very positive right throughout the first couple of months, saying, hey, listen, we're seeing incremental improvements week by week by week. They've got a game this week against Old Brighton at Brighton Beach. It doesn't get hard, doesn't get any more difficult than that. It's the toughest assignment in footy right now. They'll get through that game and then have a chance to have a break and reassess. From a coaching perspective, how do you go about that? Particularly, let's just say at the moment, Brighton will start as favourites. Let's say they do head to the break at 0-8.
You just have to keep everything positive. You can get something out of every situation. Okay, what's a positive for this weekend? You're going to see how the best plays. Let's just, if you're a player, challenge yourself. Go up against Flockhart. Harry Hill, if you want to learn running patterns, run with him.
Yep.
You can get positives out of everything. And look, strange things happen in football. Fair enough, this would be quite strange, but strange things do happen.
Time for a break. That is Premier Men's wrapped up. After the break, we're going to get Paddy's Premier B report, and this section just keeps on getting better. For the love of the game continues.
Are you looking to grow your business? William Buck are more than just accountants and advisors who can develop strategic growth plans for your business. With over 125 years' experience, William Buck has expertise in navigating through challenging times and has been working closely with the VAFA community, creating positive change for individuals, businesses and community organisations. William Buck's team of specialist advisors work collaboratively, providing you with 360 support. Schedule a complimentary consultation today by visiting williambuck.com.
Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. Thanks to MECWACARE. It's time to talk Premier B, and our Premier B scribe is Paddy Grindlay. There's so many great games on Premier B every single week, and you're never quite sure how these things are going to turn out. I was keeping a very close eye on Old Geelong and Old Ivanhoe at Como Park, and it did turn out to be a fantastic game of footy.
Yeah, I mean, usually you'd say this is game of the season, but we've had so many tight ones in Premier B that you don't really know which way to look most weeks. But this one was the standout across round 7 of football. So the Hoas now moved to 6-1. They managed to beat Old Geelong at Como Park. This was a ground that held a little bit of issue for them for a long time. They won there last year. They've been able to shore that up. 12-14, 86 to 11-11, 77 victors. A really close contest all day. And it was the Hoas young guys late. So first, Rowan McKenzie kicking one of the goals of the year. He played on from a set shot, got around the player on the mark, kicked a banana from 40 metres out that went through. And then Tyson Nagel, 1-on-1 at centre-half forward, got around his opponent and drilled the shot from 48 metres to get them over the line. So Jared Geesham was stoked. Their thing at the moment is making sure they finish games well. Their last quarters have been a bit choppy over the course of this season. They feel they've shored that one up. Nick Dixon, the coach of Old Geelong, feeling the game could have gone either way. A little bit disappointed, obviously, by the loss, but pretty proud that his team was able to go the distance against what feels like the clubhouse leader in Premier B in Old Ivanhoe. If you're going to watch this game back, you need to watch the battle of the big boys. So Jack Sheridan versus Alex Murkov, 2 of the best rucks you'll see in local footy, full stop, going hammer and tong all day long. Great stuff, and perhaps some players that might get flagged for Big V selection later in the season.
Jack Sheridan having a fantastic season.
Shezelenko, you beauty. And then Alex Murkov, who there's been some interest in ahead of the mid-season draft this week. 50 hit-outs for him to go with 19 disposals and 7 clearances.
Where would you like to go next? I have a look. Caulfield Grammarians with a win over Old Camberwell. 26-point victory in the end at Glen Huntly Park. And Old Camberwell have started the season in fantastic form. Where are they at right now?
Yeah, it's an interesting spot for the Wellers. They do seem like they're a quality team as far as 2025 Premier B is concerned, but this competition is really close. And the key thing I think that will play out is how you go against teams on their home deck. So we know that Glen Huntly Park is heavily affected by the wind, and Neil Connell didn't feel like they utilised the breeze when they had it in that first term, and from that point they're chasing tail. It didn't allow them to get really into the game in the first term to take the advantage that they needed, and from that point onwards they stuck behind, and the Caulfield Grammarians were able to use the conditions to their advantage and hold back any Wellers resurgence. I still think they're about the mark. I'll say this all year with Premier B. Any side can beat each other on any given weekend. It just will depend on availability and the ability to play the variety of grounds and conditions we have.
And from a Caulfield perspective?
Yeah, so Caulfield, 3-game homestand, won all those games, now back in the running. A little bit of a slow start, availability the issue. Paul Satterley is still learning about this team, first-year coach, and you did see Dane Crognali, who was featuring for them this weekend. He's formerly of the Uni Blues. He's crossed over, so he adds to their midfield. There's a few players, I'm sure, Hugo, that you would have noted in your time watching on at Caulfield.
Well, Archie Luffman, you know, he's having a great season. I think he's kicked 17 goals so far, always about there, and you need players in your side like that if you want to compete at this top end. I know Slats does. I know he does.
Williamstown CYMS, big winners over Old Carey. 7-goal win at Fear on Reserve.
Yeah, this was a huge one. So
did that surprise you, that margin?
I did tip Williamstown. I didn't think they'd get up by this much. Old Carey's one of a few squads that I think are really, hanging out for the bye now at this stage of the year. But the key thing that you have to note here for Williamstown is that the third quarter was the defining moment. It was, 2 goals but combined between the two squads in the first half. So really wind-affected ground out there in Williamstown. So it was tight, contested. They almost opted, the CYs, to play a sort of rugby league style game, which is what Con Tazoglu was telling me about on Monday morning. They kicked 8 goals into the wind, which is beyond anyone's expectations. They were able to go really handball happy. They were so impressive. Old Carey coach Luke Giles was particularly impressed with that quarter. That's really how you have to play that ground. And this is, again, the importance that I mentioned of knowing how to play your home ground well and be able to play to the conditions you go.
Absolutely. Interesting one, though. 31 scoring shots for Willie. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. I mean, Carey, what they have 19 scoring shots. So that's a telling one. I always look at that because that gives you a good indication of who was in control in the game as well.
And the final 2 games of the weekend, Old Melburnians by 7 goals over Hampton Rovers and Old Trinity by 68 points over Fitzroy.
Yeah, and there's a fun one. So Donald McDonald wasn't actually coaching because he's had a knee replacement. So he was posted up on the couch watching the scores on Play HQ, and then I rang him after he'd watched the replay to go through it. So it's a fun one. So Donald, hopefully he'll be back out on the park to coach this weekend because it's a really important contest. A shout out to Jack James and Scott Duthie, who were taking the reins over there for the win over Fitzroy at Brunswick Street Oval.
Looking ahead to round 8, we'll do our tip shortly. Old Camberwell taking on Old Geelong. That one's a mouth-watering prospect given where they've both been, as is Old Trinity and Caulfield Grammarians. That's a game to watch as well. So a couple of really good games coming up again this weekend in round 8 of Premier B. Yeah,
it's a thrilling contest. As I mentioned, I think a few squads at this point of the year really keen for the bye. We have there's injuries, there's availability, and I think the rest will do a few of these clubs well. Old Carey's one of those. I think Old Camberwell wouldn't mind a reset as well. So Old Ivanhoe atop the ladder, as we mentioned, Old Trinity in second, and then you've got a chasing pack of 5 teams on 4 and 3. We'll take a break on For the Love of the Game. On the other side of this, Owen Lawler and our Premier C review.
Tickets are now on sale for the VAFA's 2025 Big V Gala Dinner presented by City Power. It's a landmark event, the largest function that VAFA has ever staged, and it's celebrating 100 years of Big V representative football. This historic evening will serve as the official opening to the Rep Football Weekend, offering a unique opportunity to honour the legacy of the Big V and its enduring significance within the VAFA community. The Big V Gala Dinner will bring together past players, coaches, club representatives and supporters to reflect on a century of tradition, achievement and pride. The evening promises to be one of the most significant in the VAFA's history. You don't want to miss it. It's at Centrepiece at Melbourne Park, Thursday the 10th of July 2025. Tickets now on sale at vafa.com.au. Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. We want to talk Premier C and we want to talk one of the blockbusters of the weekend coming up this weekend. We cannot wait. It's going to be an absolute ripper. A round 8 top of the table clash.
Yeah, it's Parkdale and AJAX. It's going to be an absolute perler. It's 2 teams atop the ladder with high percentages yet to suffer a loss before we go into the bye. They're going to throw everything into it. And joining us is Owen Lawler to chat about it, the coach of Parkdale. Hello, Owen.
Hey, boys. How are we going?
Oh, very good. Not as well as you are after 7 wins to start the season. What's been behind this incredible start to 2025?
Yeah, it's probably a couple of things. I think we've been healthy, the list. So we've been able to keep, 90% of the list on the ground. So continuity of players playing helps. And I think a bit of confidence from the last seasons where we finished third and third. So we've been in pretty good couple of years and we've managed to keep most of the list. And they're just a bit more experienced, a lot of these guys. They're now 50, 60 senior guys, a lot of them. And they're just used to the level and playing a lot, so consistent at the level. So it's just natural improvement as they mature and get a bit older.
Our man Joey Pignataro would usually comment on your scoring ability. He loves to see sides bring up tons and score heavily. You've done that really well. You've scored just about more than 80 points than any other team in the competition. What's been behind your high scoring this season?
I think a few guys have stepped up this year especially in their hitting the scoreboard. I think last year a lot of clubs used to think that we're all just about Mitch Brown. Mitch Brown has got to kick our score to win. But we've got probably 5-6 other players that are popping up 1 or 2 goals, and they're just more confident at the level. They're getting more dangerous. They're demanding the ball. We're using them probably a little bit better. And with Mitch being out injured for a lot of the season, I think they've just stepped up. We're getting a really good output from 7-8 guys each week kicking their 1 or 2 goals. Yeah, a guy like Louis Castle, for example, is on about 15, 16. He's having a real breakout year in the forward line. Max Phillips, they're popping up a bit more regularly than their previous couple of years because these are kids who were 19, 20 and now 21, 22 and just belong at the level. So, they're hitting the board a bit, which is really good.
Tell us a little bit about Mitch, his situation. Where's he at? What's the injury been?
Old man injuries, mate. The calf,
no
injury. So he did his calf the Thursday night before round 2, and so that put him out for 3-4 weeks, and he came back 2 weeks ago, and unfortunately just hinged the right calf, the other one. So he's 2 little calves, but this second one's not bad at all. It's a real minor tweak. So just whether it's best to have another week off and then you get the King's birthday off and come back versus if he's right to go Thursday night, he'll definitely put his hand up to play. We'll wait and see Thursday what's happening with him. Yeah.
So massive game this weekend, obviously. Now, really curious as to the preparation for you guys. Are you going to be focusing on making sure they don't score, or are you going to be focusing on making sure that you still do score and score well? Because that's that's your one wood sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. You've got to back in what we're doing. So it's that 95% of it's what are we doing really well. So you keep reinforcing that at training on Tuesday reviews. You've got to keep showing the good stuff, that how well we're defending, how well our contest. The beautiful stuff, the lovely goals that they kick, but that's the last piece that you're all about. All the tough stuff. You want to show your players all the tough stuff that's getting the goals. So backing in the way we defend at the moment has been really good, and the contest around the footy, big players that have been really flying the flag there. So those 2 things are more important than the goals, and the goals are just based off the back of all that hard stuff that a lot of boys are buying into. So we just back that in, mate. Totally respect AJAX. We've had three great games against them last year, and the semi-final, a good game for about 3 quarters. So totally respect that. We've got a couple of players there that we have to put some time into. But as I said, that's a part of your planning. But we just got to keep showing is why are we 7 and zip and what's been working, and it's really the defence and the contest that has been flagged for us. So we're going to keep backing that in.
Hugo and I have been having a conversation off air about showing your hand, tipping your cap early in the season when you're playing against a team you're more than likely to come up against later in the season. What's your philosophy on that, Owen? If there's a game there to be won, do you pull the move, or do you just hold it in your back pocket and potentially risk giving up 4 points, but knowing that you're potentially going to play these guys again when it matters most at the end of the year?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. We always have a plan B and C going into a game. Yeah. Plan A, when you're 7 and zip, plan A is you absolutely load up on what you've been doing well. But I certainly know, we come to know the AJAX boys really well, and there's a couple of boys in there that you have to respect. And if 1 or 2 of them were getting on top of us and we're a couple of goals down, first quarter, well, then a bit of plan B comes into action where you really got to clamp a couple of players. Well, you will clamp them. We got one or two boys that we're comfortable with running with their run with players or tagging players. So we've got a couple of those. And if we have to use them, we'll use them. So, moderate that as the game goes on. But at this stage of the season, 7-0, back in what we're doing. But at the time, totally have a plan B and C just in case, as you said, and especially when you get to the pointy end at the end of the year, that you never know. To win a game of footy, you use anything at your disposal. So, make sure everything's on the table, pretty much. Yeah.
It's going to be an exciting weekend. Can't wait for this game. Hey, Owen, during the week, you teach at St Bede's Mentone Tigers, which makes for a bit of an interesting dynamic, I suppose, given that you then coach against their Ammos team on the weekends. They're in Premier C as well as you guys. Do you just, entice a couple of St Bede's Mentone kids across the road to Parkdale Vultures here and there, or is that frowned upon?
It's funny, isn't it? Like I coached at St Bede's for 7 years, a while ago. So I've had my time there, and I played footy for St Bede's Mentone, and I know all the boys really well there. Taught those kids that play at St Bede's Mentone, but Parkdale's also got a lot of St Bede's boys there as well. So like Bo Morris, a lot of our local teams have got a lot of ex St Bede's boys playing for them. So you know each other very. Enticing. No, I reckon we've lost boys to St Bede's Mentone over the years through our 17s and 18s, and likewise, occasionally one might come across. But bottom line in Ammos, mate, mates recruit mates. They go where they are, and that's the number one recruiter are those kids that are really connected. They're your best recruiters. So, not much I'll say will get one across. You certainly can't offer them any incentives, as we all know. But they follow their buddies, and that's what the are is your actual players. So, but it's going to be good fun. We play St Bede's in a couple of weeks, and as I said, I know all their boys very, very well, and they know all our boys well. We get on very, very well, both teams. But it'll be a big rival game, that one, about round 10, I think we play them. Yeah.
Speaking of big games this weekend, as we mentioned, cannot wait for this one. AJAX versus Parkdale. At the end of the day, Owen, if you win this game, why do you win it? Where do you win it?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think the signs we've seen in the middle we've got a little bit of a new look midfield, and I'll be backing these guys in. We've certainly found one or two up in there, like a kid named Ollie Green, Cooper Howe, Matt Emmanuel. These guys are really leading the fight inside. So our inside mids are really, really strong. If they get on top, I feel very confident that we can get on top. And then I think, it's probably in terms of all the Premier data stats that we all have access to now, I think a real good one for us is our ability to intercept the opposition. And we feel like when we've got the ball in our forward line, we're very hard to get it through us and go the other way. We've been intercepting really, really well, and that's due to our back line. Our half back line's been really strong. They intercept mark really well and just give us a nice second, third entry in a row. We get a lot of repeat entries off the back of our defence. So I'd say that's where we're going to hopefully win the game. It's going to come off the contest from our mids, and then our back six and mids, the way they defend the opposition trying to get through us. So that'll be where the game's won or lost, I reckon, who can do that the best. And then, as you said, the last piece always falls into place for both sides. It's who can hit the scoreboard off all the hard work. So, and I think we've got your 7-8 guys who are kicking goals quite regularly. And if a few of them can step up and get their 2 or 3s, we'll go a long way to winning the game. Yeah.
Oh, and you've got a class to teach and perhaps some new players to recruit, mate. So we'll let you go. Thanks for your time.
No, thanks, boys. Thanks for having us.
Always great to catch up with Owen Lalor, and looking forward to that game this weekend. One of the games of the season in any section. AJAX taking on Parkdale Vultures. One to watch. We'll be keeping a very close eye on that one next Saturday afternoon. Let's whip around the rest of Premier C across the weekend from round 7. St Bede's, Paddy with a big win, 44-point win over Parkside. The Jackers, as we mentioned, remain undefeated with a healthy win over Glen Ira. Beau Morris with a 59-point win over Pegs out at Windy Hill, and Marcelin with a 49-point win over Paran at Toorak Park. As we take a look at the ladder.
Yeah, it sets up that juicy clash, doesn't it? 1v2, AJAX and Parkdale before we take a break. They're both undefeated, so someone's got to come out of that without the zero next to the L column, unless we get the draw, of course. Haven't had one in Premier C yet. St Bede's in third on 6 wins. Beau Morris in fourth on 5 wins. And then you've got a bit of a gap, Jace. So it's Pegs at 3 and 4 and 5th, a game ahead of Mazenod, Marcelin and Parkside, all on 2 wins. Glen Ira, Old McKinnon in ninth with the 1 win. Paran yet to get its year started, 0 wins, 7 losses. So a really nice little divide that's opened up probably for the top 4.
Yeah, the top 4 have kicked clear, haven't they? A couple of games clear of the rest.
Yeah, and you look at the percentages as well. So Bowie approaching 170 in percentage, Parkdale approaching 190, AJAX approaching 200, St Bede sitting back a bit on 130, but in third place with that extra win. So then you've got Pegs, Mazenod, Marcelin and Parkside, who are probably close enough to start making inroads, but would want to get the year started pretty quickly.
So, Hugo, from a coaching perspective for AJAX and Parkdale, at about 4-0, 5-0, it starts to be clear that you're kicking away from the pack, and you know you've got this game coming up in round 8, and of course you're telling your players, hey, we're not thinking about it at the moment, we're just going to go week to week to week, but now is the week. So my question to you is, for both these teams, one of them is going to come away 8 and zip, and the other one will be 7 and 1. There'll be a bye to deal with that afterwards, so in a way not necessarily a bad thing, or maybe it might be. But for the team that loses, how do you not put too much stock in this one game?
Well, you have to look at what you've achieved already for the season. Obviously, you know, doing a great job getting out, and early wins are very important. So, look, there's a lot of bragging rights in this as well.
Would you ever hold something back in this situation?
Possibly. You're not going to have all your moves shown early. Yep. It'll just be a little bit of. You want to keep something up your sleeve. If there's possibly a move that you can make in terms of you can swing a backman forward who you know he's got impact, he can kick 1 or 2 goals really quickly. And I always like to have a thought about it in terms of what will the other coach do? Has he got a plan B for this? So you don't want to show it now. Look, when I was a young coach early on, I think we were going really well, bombed out in the finals. I showed everything early. So we got to the finals, I had nothing left.
But I mean, you can see both sides of the equation here, because winning this game gives you a slight mental edge over the other team, especially if you can then roll them again the second time you play them. So I can sort of understand the logic of, hey, let's just win this game and worry about the future in the future.
You can, but they've both done a great job to be, 7 and zip so far, and to be 7 and 1, it's not a huge problem this part of the season.
And I think that's the element that's important. So 7 and 1, and also that gap that's forged itself in the top 4. So when you know you're at least, well, I think looking at the game by game, they're 4 games clear, both those squads in the top 4. So you know you're going to probably, well, you feel pretty comfortable that you'll be able to win enough games to stay in there. You expect that the Jackers and Parkdale will probably play each other 3 times at least this season. So you are right, Hugo. I can understand why you'd hold things back.
Absolutely. Don't worry. After this game, they'll both review it. They'll go through this game with a fine-tooth comb, but there'll be one side who'll be going through it more, and that'll be St Bede's. Yeah. They'll want to know what can we do to beat both of them. So it's going to be very heavily watched, this one.
And you get the week off afterwards as well, so you can throw everything into it.
No Braden May this morning, but he has been kind enough to send it through his divisional report, as always, around the VAFA. Braden's always got a great eye on everything that's going on through the divisions. He does some fantastic work writing for News Corp and Community TV. We're going to start in Division 1. Let's take a look through Division 1 men's and the results from round 7. And the one that really sort of jumped out was Brunswick. Jason Reynolds' Brunswick. They've moved just outside the top 4 on percentage, Paddy, after back-to-back wins. They accounted for Q by 9 points. They were held goalless in the last quarter, but managed to hang on, and they've moved up to 4 and 3, and it's come at just the right time with Preston and Oakley both dropping back-to-back games. It's given Brunswick a chance to suddenly firm into the equation in Jason Reynolds' first season as coach. Tom Wilson and Oscar Watt kicked 4 and 3 goals respectively to highlight the performance, and Gabriel Benova was named best on the ground. So timely victory there for Brunswick, who are now joined Preston Bull Ants equal 4th along with Oakley, as we mentioned. They've both dropped a couple of games because a couple of if you went back 2 or 3 weeks ago, Brunswick were off the pace. Now they're right back on the pace.
Yeah, they had to fight pretty hard. Kilby kicking itself after a pretty inaccurate final term. 3 goals, 4 they kicked in the final one. They were down by 29 points at 3/4 time. Charged home, Brunswick just the 2 behinds. Interestingly, looking at the Play HQ, no scores after the 21-minute mark, no goals after the 14-minute mark. So it was some grim defending out there at the Gillen Oval. So Yeah, big win for Brunswick. That's a really important one when you're not playing your best footy, just to be able to hold on at the end. I think that's going to be the story as the conditions worsen across wintertime.
And at the other end of the D1 ladder, Andrew Batten's Monash Blues got their first win of the season. Congratulations to them. They held on against Elstonwick, Hugo's old team, who remain winless. The scoreboard 12-10-82 to 8-20-68 in trying conditions, so the Wickers would be kicking themselves, except they'd missed. Blues skipper Mitch King kicked 3 goals. John Walker was best of field in a win that lifts the Blues up to 8th position, so a critical one. Gets them up out of the drop zone at the moment on percentage from Therry Panola on 50.62. Monash Blues now 69.9, and Elstonwick yet to win a game. The Blues will face UHS VU, who sit in 7th in the next round. It's been a tough start to the year for your Wickers.
It has. It's been a little bit of player availability as well. And don't forget, they're coming off back-to-back flags. Very well won back-to-back flags.
Oh, extremely well coached back-to-back flags.
But
they tend to be.
The players are getting a little bit older, and it might be a little bit of a premiership hangover to a certain extent where they didn't get their pre-season going early enough. But there are some players coming. I know that.
Ooh, okay.
But it has been a problem over time, that goal kicking at Elstonwick. And I know the absolute great captain, Julian Yateman, he would have had his hand around a few of those points. I've never seen a more unorthodox. He's very good at a helicopter kick, Julian is. But no, look, the Wickers, they've stepped up to D1 as well, and it's a very strong D1 this year too.
Yeah, it certainly is. And the upside for them is that, as we said, Monash have won one game, Therry Panola have won one game, and Elstonwick on none. So 3 to 2 doesn't go. You've just got to make sure that you jump up to 8 spots. So at the moment, they're only one game off the pace and about 20% for the Wickers. And, we've still got 10 games to play. They take on Old Peninsula at Elstonwick Park, number 2, this Saturday. And then Therry Panola play Oakley. And the other game, as I mentioned, was Monash Blues taking on UHSVU.
Over to Division 2 in South Melbourne District. So they've won their last 3 on the bounce. They started the year 0-4. Looming as a side, Braden May has written that you don't really want to play 52-point winners over St John's on the weekend, just a game outside of the top 4. Because of the early results, the percentage is pretty low, but they are getting a bit of a head of steam up in Division 2. Other results, Whitefriars marching in by 70 points over Hawthorn. The Old Yarra Cobras getting it done over MHSOB. St Mary's Salesian 18-11-119. High-scoring contest defeating West Brunswick 13-10-88 by 31 points. And then Aquinas 101 running out winners over Canterbury by 12 points, which leaves us with the ladder, Jace. Old Yarra still atop the ladder, 6 wins and 1 draw with Whitefriars. St Mary's Salesian 6-1. Whitefriars 5-1-1 in third spot. And then you've got the race for 4th. So West Brunswick in there at the moment at 4-3 with MHSOB just behind on a worse percentage, also 4-3 in 5th. St John's and South Melbourne districts 3-4 in 6th and 7th. Canterbury, Hawthorn and Aquinas in the bottom 3 positions. So pretty tight. Looks like there are 3 portions of the Division 2 ladder going on.
No, we're not talking tiers.
I'm not doing tiers.
Please, we've moved to portions, have we? It's no less confusing. What I will say is congratulations to Aquinas. They got the better of Canterbury to get their first win of the season. David Malvasso was the star of the show. He kicked 7 goals and was best on ground. So as we mentioned, Aquinas, Canterbury and Hawthorn all on 1 win after the opening 7 rounds. So a little bit like D1.
Yes.
It's going to be a pretty interesting relegation battle to try and avoid being in that bottom 2. Because just like D1, there's 3 teams at the moment sitting at the bottom of the table.
Absolutely. Great work by Aquinas out there. I know they're a young team, and look, they're in Eastern Footy heartland as well. So for them to get that win, that'll put a little bit more energy in the boys coming home after but every side's looking for the bye at the moment, I think, too.
Yep.
Want to get a few injuries back. And then you can reset it a little bit as well. Instead of portions, what about segments? What are the segments on the line?
Segments are good.
Let's not use more synonyms for Paddy just to roll out his very confusing strategies here. Speaking of breaking through for a win, fantastic result. We'll talk Division 3 seniors in a moment, but I want to start in the reserves. Ely Park tasted success. The first time in 1,394 days they've had a win after getting the better of Chadstone, and they did it by 9 goals in the end, so it was a fantastic result and a really special moment when playing coach Xavier Bakash, playing in his 50th game, he kicked a goal, pointed to the sky in tribute to Alex Beveridge, their beloved club trainer who passed away earlier this year. And so it was wonderful. We see that on the VAFA socials if you want to take a look at that. But just for teams, the thing I respect most about players and teams that have these sort of extended droughts is they keep coming back year after year, Hugo. And I mean, I just think when you talk about this podcast being for the love of the game, that is for the love of the game. Week after week, you're out there, you're training just as hard as everyone else who's winning every week. You're playing in the difficult conditions, you're rolling up, probably your friends and family at times going, what are you doing? You're getting beaten every week. What are you wasting your time with this? But it's not a waste of time.
No, absolutely. They're a great club out there at Ely Park. I know Matt Embling, the coach there, pretty well, coached with him before. He's an absolute ripper. He keeps talking about they are a young side, they're a developing side as well. He's a really good teaching coach as well. So those young guys out there are in great hands. But what you really like, you say for the love of the game, it's also for the love of your mates as well.
Yeah.
That's why you turn up. But really nice for them to have such high regard for the trainer as well, they're a massive part. So it's like footy clubs are like a second family, especially in the divisions where you are literally there because you want to be with your mates. And it's a great story.
Chatty won the senior game by 29 points over Ely Park. So that was their first win of the season. The Ely Park seniors yet to have a win. So that was why it was such a big deal.
Yep.
You know, their reserves hadn't won and their seniors hadn't won. So it's the first win for the year for them. Hopefully that's something that can spark a little bit of momentum. We've seen it at Mazzala in the last few weeks. They had Fev come along, win a game. And guess what? They've gone and won 2 since. They're on a 3-game winning streak now without Fev. And sometimes it's just that circuit breaker, Hugo. You just need that first win, and 1 can lead to 2 and 2 to lead to 3. The confidence, the belief, the enjoyment, the excitement you get from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Wins can be addictive too, but the pressure off it now as well. They've done it. And I guarantee you that the seniors would have absolutely loved that win. They would have loved to have run out and see the reserves and see the joy in their face as well. Yeah. And they would have had a great night out there after that.
And a good effort, Hugo, from Chadstone as well, who has their season underway because, of course, that was the battle of the 2 undefeated teams in the Division 3 seniors.
2 winless teams.
2 winless teams, pardon me.
Yeah, by 29 points for Chadstone. Albert Park by 22 over Box Hill North. Richmond Central over Swinburne in a big result for them, 64-point winners. Powerhouse by 28 points over Wattle Park in the battle of the 2 unbeaten teams in Div 3. So that was a fantastic result for Powerhouse to get a 28-point win. Kevin Mangan was named best on the ground. Harry Officer marked his return, kicked 5 goals. He's just so important to that team. And Michael Timmins was also back with 4 majors. So you would have to say now, Paddy, after the battle of the undefeateds, as we're going to have this week, it was Powerhouse and Wattle Park down there at Ross Gregory. Powerhouse by 28 points, and they've kicked a game clear of North Brunswick and Wattle Park.
Yeah, and they get another test as well before the bye. They play North Brunswick this weekend. So
it's first versus second all over again.
So that'll be a ripper. You look at the percentages of these two squads, 266 rounding up for Powerhouse and North Brunswick 244. 7 and zip, as we mentioned, V6 and 1. Down the bottom of the ladder, maybe now a chance for Chadstone to try and scrape its way out of the bottom 2 within a win of Latrobe and Swinburne in 7th and 8th.
We will take a break on For the Love of the Game. When we return, we will talk Premier Women's, Premier B Women's, our rising stars. We've still got ton watch and tips all still to come on For the Love of the Game.
Footy's at the heart of Victoria, but gambling harm is creeping onto our fields. That's where the Real Stakes steps in. Backed by the Victorian Amateur Football Association, the Real Stakes helps local clubs tackle the risk of online sports betting head on. Get the tools, spark the conversation, and protect what really matters, your mates. Visit realstakes.com.au to find out more.
Time to talk a VAFA women's competition, Premier Women's and Premier B. We're going to start in Premier Women's, and the story for mine, Paddy, of 2025 so far has been the emergence and the continual rise of Caulfield Grammarians. Over the last couple of weeks, they've beaten the 2 powerhouse teams of recent seasons in St Kevin's and Old Scotch. And joining us to talk about how they've done it is their coach, DANI De Stefano. Dan, thanks for your time.
No worry. Here.
Great fortnight for you guys, but it really caps off what's been so far a really pleasing, I would imagine, first 7 weeks of the season.
Yeah, look, I don't know. Expected, particularly the playing group, to come out for the last 7 weeks and to get 2 games in particular, both really tough contests, and to come out a great outcome. I think we're pretty chuffed with that.
So you were 5 and zip, knowing that you had Scotch and St Kevin's and Scotch on the horizon in rounds 6 and 7. Coming into that fortnight, so if we go back a couple of weeks, what was your message to the players, knowing that you had the 2 benchmark teams coming up in the next fortnight?
Yeah, I think it was really harnessing the momentum that we've had, good footy that we've been playing. And in particular, it was our turn to kind of make our statement on the. We went pretty deep into finals. And we're pretty disappointed with kind of how the year ended after a really good run. And so for us, it was about most of that momentum and then really making our competition as a new powerhouse club.
So, Danny, I look back at the prelim from last year where you played up against the Stars and you were scoreless up to half-time. It was a 50-point loss in the end, I believe, and you've turned that around. It's a 9-goal turnaround from the last time you played them. What's changed since that moment? And I suppose, what have you found out about the reigning premiers in the contest? And then what have you found out about your team and its application, especially in that last term?
Yeah, for sure. Look, to be honest, I don't think there's not too much that's kind of changed. They're still an incredible powerhouse and have so much talent across the board in any line. It was really about building on kind of what we started last year. I came into the club. They had a bit of a tougher year the year before, and so kind of I was just trying to bring a bit of and enthusiasm and really connect the group again. And then playing kind of under me in this particular brand months now. So what we've just really had an opportunity to do, the prelim final is really consolidate where we're at. I think we played some good footy here. We just kind of got caught up at the end against a really good opponent. Since then, we've had the addition of some really great new, but also a lot of our seniors really kind of found the love of it again, really enjoying their footy, and have picked up not only on field but also as kind of have brought everyone with them. And I think they're really motivated to be incredibly successful this year.
Hey, Danny, great win on the weekend, but it must have been a great game too. Lots of lead changes. Now, I love coach-to-coach questions. So from a coach to a coach, you're down by a point at three-quarter time. You know it's on the line. What was the message? What did you tell the girls?
Yeah, I said, look, we've been here before. And what we are able to do and what we were able to do on the weekend was quickly. So we kicked the first goal of every quarter. And we're kind of come out the blocks fresh, and it's across the whole field. We're really good at beating our opponent. So I was like, we have to just come out firing, hope to put some scores on the board quickly, and then maintain from there on. We're also fighting to hold a lead now, which is something we probably weren't particularly last year. So I'm not sure if you but the pressure in that last 10 minutes, it was pretty tense all over the ground. Bodies flying everywhere. Really, really trying hard to hold the lead and then hope and get it done.
We're about 6 weeks away, Danny, from Big V action, and I love this part of the competition. Who are some players at your club that Paul Grove should have his eye on at this point of the year? And I reckon there's about 6 of them, so take as long as you want.
Yeah, already chatting with Paul, obviously.
Good.
Yeah, lots of names and faces. Ebony Angelopoulos, absolute star for us as collegians, moved over and is having a ripper year. Also a star at centre half back for us. She's our quarterback.
Sorry, say that name again. You just dropped out there, Danny.
Chloe O'Malley.
Yep.
So former Box Hill player for quite some time. She's just our quarterback and sets everything up from the half back. Ellie Cleland in the middle of the ground is really, really well. Olivia Rundle, our ruck, but with injury has been our first ruck and is absolutely killing in and week out. Lots of faces that he's probably been able to see maybe for the first time this year with us, which is really exciting. I'm looking forward to hopefully the Big V team, including a lot of new faces, which would be really exciting for the VAFA.
Well, it does feel like this competition's entering a new phase, Premier Women's. It's a lot more even. I mean, full credit to St Kevin's and Old Scotch, who have been the flag bearers for this comp for such a long time and really propelled it forward and given teams like Caulfield something to chase and a benchmark to aspire to. And it feels like the gap between those two teams and not only yourselves, but you've got Beau Morris and Fitzroy a game back. Old Geelong won the flag last year in Premier B. They're dangerous on their day. Q sits 7th and they're 3-3. There's some real depth in Premier Women's, probably better than ever before.
I'm loving this year. Having strong competition means we actually get to learn something every week and we get to improve. We've had continuous improvement since the start of the year. We had some big wins. We had some really tests. Old Geelong were the one for me that kind of came out firing and we maybe did it. And so now we know that we have to expect a challenge in every match for the players and their development.
Well, congratulations on your start to the season 7, Zip. As we mentioned this week, another one of those challenging games. Fitzroy at Glen Huntly Park. All the best and thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks to DANI DE STEFANO. Wonderful performance from Caulfield. They are 7-0. We'll go through the results from round 7. Fitzroy, 11-point winners over Beau Morris at Banksia Reserve. That game between Caulfield and Old Scotch was an absolute ripper in the end. Caulfield winning it by 4 points. St Kevin's bounced back to beat Old Geelong by 13 points. And then Kew and Williamstown CYMS played an absolute thriller, a 3-point game in the end. Kew got the job done at Victoria Park.
On to Premier B, Old Brighton by 66 points over Old Yarra Cobras. The Old Melburnians by 71 points over Marcelin. St Bede's Mentone Tigers winning a close one over Westbourne, 7-point victors. And Port Melbourne Chargers continuing on their merry way, 86-point victors over Melbourne University. The Old Zaverians had the bye.
So Old Brighton lead Premier B Women's. They're 7-0. They're 2 games clear of Port Melbourne, sitting at 5-2. Old Melburnians at 4-3. St Bede's Mentone sitting half a game further back at 3-2-1. And then outside the top 4, it's Westbourne, Marcelin, Old Zavs, Old Yarra and Melbourne Uni Women's.
Are you looking to grow your business? William Buck are more than just accountants and advisors who can develop strategic growth plans for your business. With over 125 years' experience, William Buck has expertise in navigating through challenging times and has been working closely with the VAFA community, creating positive change for individuals, businesses and community organisations. William Buck's team of specialist advisors work collaboratively, providing you with 360 support. Schedule a complimentary consultation today by visiting williambuck.com.
For the Love of the Game continues, and it's time for us to celebrate our VAFA Anytime Fitness Rising Star nominees for Round 7 in the men's competition. From Old Scotch's Under-19 Premier team, it's Matt Mays, 20 years of age. Incredibly, Hugo, he's playing in the Under-19s. This is his 4th season playing in the Old Scotch Under-19s because he started as a 17-year-old in 2022, played 3 games there, originally from Camberwell Juniors. He's played in total 33 under-19s games for the Cardinals, and he's the only player in under-19 Premier to have polled best player votes in all 7 games this season. He's having a fantastic year.
Yeah, you can see the benefit of getting it in that good system early as well. You know, you come out of your junior clubs where they're run by mum and dad coaches and parents doing everything, where you're in that proper system. So he's going to be a great player for a long time. But, geez, it must take a lot of physical toll on the body too for the young lad.
Oh, yeah. That's a fair bit of footy.
33 games of under-19 footy, but again, just the depth that they've got at Old Scotch, they can afford to just let these players have apprenticeships like this, and then when they're ready, they can step up and start playing senior footy. In the women's competition, it is at Old Haileybury. It's Zara Clavarino, also 20 years of age. She's originally from Berwick and the Dandenong Stingrays in 2023. She graduated, played some senior footy at Berwick in the EFNL last season. This is her first season in the VAFA. She's polled best player votes in 5 of 7 games so far this season. So congratulations to our 2 VAFA Anytime Fitness Rising Star nominees for Round 7. Matt Mays from Old Scotch and Zara Clavarino from Old Haileybury. And it is that time of the week again. Paddy, thanks to Sherrin. Time for the Sting. Ton watch!
There we go. The weekly Sting that you do live for us, which is a fair effort at this point of the podcast and the record as well. Now, key question for our man Hugo, because we know that Joey Pignataro, he doesn't believe in the ton. He doesn't believe that an amateur footballer could kick 100 goals over the course of the season. And we've got a man in Hugo Higginbotham who has seen this competition play out for years. He's a doyen of the Amos. He's a 3-time coach of the year, the 2-time premiership coach. Hugo, can a player kick a ton in the Amos?
Not a chance.
Come on.
No.
He really has fitted into the Pignataro shoes, hasn't he?
Oh, no. We're
Something
not
about that high chair that you sit in the corner, it makes people grumpy.
And I got the coach's steel look in the eye from Hugo there as well. So that's a real cut through. So unfortunate stuff from you. So you're kicked out of this segment. We'll see you probably on, I think, the weekend at some point, but you're not coming back.
I was contractually obliged to say that too, boys.
Yes,
I got to get that out. But it's very, very hard to kick a ton. I mean, you've got so many things. Blokes don't play 18 games anymore either, so you're probably coming off 14, 15, go to Europe, all those things.
Yeah, all that
Of
kind of
course
stuff.
it's hard to kick a ton. That's why we're celebrating it. If it was easy, we wouldn't even have a segment about it, would we?
Who are our clubhouse leaders from this weekend?
Well, let's talk about big
Jace?
bags from the weekend for a start, just to prove that it is possible to still kick big bags of goals in the VAFA every week. 8 goals this week to 3 players. Louis Meyer from Old Melburnians thirds, Luke Furchy from Marcelin's thirds, and Sam Littress from Uni Blacks under-19s. Then there were 4 players who kicked 7 goals. Ed Fury from Old Scotch's thirds. Hugh Beasley from Old Trinity in their senior side. Ryan Francis from St Bede's Mentone under-19s. And David Malvaso, who we mentioned earlier, booted 7 for Aquinas. Luke Ashen kicked 6 for Oakley Seniors. So he and Bailey Pays are now our clubhouse leaders for Ton Watch. They sit at 34 goals after 7 rounds of footy. So what are we? Just gone past a third of the season, and they've gone past a third of making it to the ton.
Okay.
So they're still on track.
We're going to need some good weather.
They're still alive. Bailey Pace kicked a couple on the weekend for Old Peninsula, and as I mentioned, Luke Ashen kicked 6 for Oakley. Sitting on 33 is Rory Calvert at Old Zaverian's thirds, and then Blake Williams has 30. He booted 4 on the weekend for Box Hill North. Our leading goal kicker in the VAFA women's competition is Hannah Smith. She booted a couple on the weekend. She's got 24 for the season for St Kevin's Women's, which leads us to tip time.
Yes.
Now, in the absence of Jay Pignataro,
Are you going to tip?
Hugo Higginbotham will be stepping up and doing our tipping.
Jason Bennett's going to tip.
Week.
That's what I'm hearing.
No, it's going to be Hugo. He knows far more about all this sort of stuff than I do.
All right.
Who am I? Let's revisit round 7. Paddy, you were a perfect 5 from 5 in Premier League last weekend.
Oh, hello.
And Joseph was 4 from 5. And then, but then in Premier Men's,
Oh, no.
yeah, you went 2 from 5 in Premier Men's. Joey went 3 from 5. So you both ended up with 7 for the week, which is pretty solid.
I'll take 7. I'll take
7 for the week, which means you've maintained your 5-tip
Good.
lead over Joseph, 47 to 42.
You know what happened? He sucked me into tipping the Snow Dogs. Unbelievable. I can't believe I would ever tip St Bernard's at home. They never win there.
No, it's
never
impossible.
Win there. No.
Impossible. We've been saying that for years.
The Bisque Bernards, yes.
Isn't it incredible how it's flipped 180 degrees?
Hello
Quite
to everyone in Essendon if you're listening.
Quite amazing. Last year, they couldn't win on the road. This year, they haven't lost on the
Remarkable,
road.
isn't
They
it?
haven't been
Yeah.
able to win at home.
They'll figure it out.
As we'll turn to round 8, Premier Men's, and we've already prefaced a little earlier in the show, there's a couple of fantastic games in this one. Let's start with Old Camberwell versus Old Geelong.
Yeah, this one is interesting. So I've erred on the side, and you'll see this develop through the tips of tipping the team at home, just because I feel like the conditions are now really coming to the fore. So Old Camberwell at home, I think, get the job done over the Ox.
Hugo?
Interesting contest, very interesting contest, but I'm going to go, because these are Joey's tips actually,
Yes.
so I'm going to try and get him as close to the mark
Well,
as I
that's it,
possibly
exactly.
can.
Now we need to.
I don't need
catch a
someone
few.
who actually knows what they're doing, Hugo. That
No, no.
ruins the exercise.
But we love a contest like this. But I am going to actually go for Old Geelong away. I think that's a very, very crucial game for them as well. A lot to play for.
Yeah.
Old Trinity versus Caulfield Grammarians.
Yeah, this is tough. So I think Caulfield, 3 games that they've won in the last 3 weeks, all at home, travelling out to play the Tees. The key thing here is the North Melbourne VFL bye. So that frees up Ollie Lowe for Caulfield. That might free up Adam Tomlinson for Old Trinity. So this could be an all-star game of sorts. I'm going to tip the Tees at home. And Donald's new knee.
Tees at home. I don't know about that. I'm going the away side again.
Oh,
I'm going to go
dear.
the Grammarians.
So this could go either very well for Joey or very poorly.
Yeah, I've got nothing to lose here. Absolutely nothing to lose.
That's true. All care and no responsibility.
Yes.
The good thing is here, though, if from Joey's perspective, if Hugo goes crazy this week and picks 10 out of 10 and gets Joey back in the contest, Joey will take the credit for it.
Yeah.
If it goes badly, he'll go, well, of course I couldn't.
Yeah,
beat
and it'll be
Hugo
null and
destroyed
void.
me.
And then I'll be taking myself out for dinner at the end of the year rather than him taking me
Not
out.
right. Old Melburnians versus Willie CYMS.
Old Melburnians at Elstonwick Park. I think the big ground's going to be the important part of the narrative. Williamstown, very dangerous at home. But the interesting thing is that there's been a lot of streaks in this year, which is bizarre considering how up and down the ladder is. Williamstown's year has genuinely been a roller coaster. It's been win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win. I think they're due the loss, and I think they'll go to the bye losing to the OMs.
I am, to keep consistent, and because I've got nothing to lose here, I think Willie are going to put 2 together. 2 on the trot
Fantastic.
here. Shout out to Joey.
Hugo might be blowing up our tipping
I think he
or
might
making
be.
it unbelievably good. Fitzroy versus Old Carey.
Old Carey for me.
Yeah, I will go Old Carey as well.
Okay, all right.
Old Ivanhoe versus the Rovers.
And Old Ivanhoe to continue on their merry way.
And I will take Old Ivanhoe as well there.
Let's go to Premier Men's, William Buck Premier Men's, round 8. One of our VAFA live streams got 3 coverages this weekend, which is fantastic, of the 5 games. 1:55, vafa.com.au, the live stream. Old Scotch versus Uni Blues. What an interesting game.
Ooh, this is serious. Yeah, it just depends. So, again, North Melbourne VFL bye. Who plays for North Melbourne VFL?
James
Tarrant
Tarrant
does. So, we will be seeing, we hope, James Tarrant for a second successive week. If he and Will Clark get going inside 50, I'd say that there would be no way that Old Scotch would lose it if they do get moving. So, I think the Cards will beat the Blues.
It's going to depend on which Old Scotch turn up
It
in
is,
terms
yep.
of players, and but they got their form going last week, and that was a big win,
Yeah.
really big win. I know Bernie's got a lot of media pressure that Joey's putting on them, and that's starting to weigh. But I just think Old Scotch will get this one done again. I think their form might be coming.
Another of our VAFA live streams, 1:55 on Saturday, vafa.com.au. You can watch this game again. Another really interesting one. Old Haileybury and St Bernard's, but it's St Bernard's on the road. The 10-foot tall St Bernard's.
The 10-foot tall. That's dummy. Old Haileybury have been superb to start the year. They're particularly tricky at home. They play Princess Park out in South Caulfield really well, Hugo. Your stomping ground, I think they win at home.
Yeah, I think you might be right. And I'm glad we covered that it is South Caulfield, not Caulfield South.
I've been reminded.
Can we put Joseph down for an Old Haileybury to beat St Bernard's here?
Absolutely, especially when I'm doing them.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. That was one I would normally have checked in on. Uni Blacks versus St Kevin's.
See, last year the Uni Blacks defeated St Kevin's at the Melbourne University Oval. But I think the SKOBers, they don't typically drop two on a run. I think Billy Coates could play this game. He played in the reserves last week. He's coming back from the shoulder reco. Looks in great nick, by the way, does Billy Coates. He's been doing the running work for Anthony Lynch over the last couple of weeks. So I think St Kevin's get the job done, but don't count the Blacks out of this one.
Oh, look, I think St Kevin's will bounce back, and they'll bounce back hard. They'll be very disappointed about losing that one at home. He's a great coach plugger, so I just think St Kevin's.
Old Brighton versus De La Salle.
Yeah, we spoke about this earlier. Great learning opportunity for some of the DLAR players, but younger DLAR players, I should say. I think Old Brighton far too strong.
Unfortunately, I think the same thing as well. Not that I'm biased in any way whatsoever, but Old Brighton, they are the benchmark at the moment.
Just quickly, if you're Nick Hyland, what is the mental preparation? What's the messaging for your team this week coming into Old Brighton?
It would be you want to look for small victories. Just small victories, set yourself one goal, achieve that goal, and then you build from that. It's got to be a quarter-by-quarter thing as well. It's a tough ask, but you can find a positive out of anything. You might find a player this weekend. So you can throw the magnets in the air, put someone in a position where they've never played before or haven't played since juniors, and you might absolutely find something.
So you could take the pressure off and say, hey, it's a free swing.
It certainly is.
Yeah, you get the week off afterwards, pour everything into it, have a big crack and see where you end up.
And then a reset.
Yep.
And then a reset.
Yep.
Final game of the weekend, our SEN game and our VAFA TV live stream. It's Old Zavarians versus Collegians down at Toorak Park.
Yeah, extended build up to this one. 2:30 bounce, 2 o'clock on air, if I read the report rightly. This is a really important contest for Collegians because they drop this one. You look at the bye and you think they have probably no chance of making their way back to the top four, which is where they want to be competing, albeit with a lot of changes since that side won the premiership back in 2023. I think the Zavs got some momentum out of that finish against the Blues. I think they'll come out strong at Toorak Park, and I actually think this could be a bit of a day where they might beat up on the Lions. I really think that they're warming up into a really big performance.
Well, it's going to be a great game. It's absolutely going to be a great game because Zavs have won the close ones. Collegians have lost the close ones. But I'm tipping a turn here.
Really?
I'm backing the Lions here. I just think that, especially on the back of that clearance work that they did earlier in the week. So footy is a strange game, and it's hard to be up for so consistently long like the Zavs have been. So I will back the Collegians this weekend.
And you could imagine Geordie McKenzie will be building this game up leading into the bye as a bit of a backs to the wall. Let's throw everything at this.
You certainly would. You certainly would. And it's almost not a free swing, but it's a chance to get their season going.
Well, yeah, they're staring down the barrel of being Knights and 2-6 into the bye, which is they're a better team than that. They really need to try and find, whether it's this game or again the other side of the bye, some sort of performance that kicks off their year.
And they did it against Old Scotch in round 3 after losing the first couple of games. They came out against Old Scotch and beat them convincingly to suddenly spark themselves. Can they do it again? We'll find out on SEN and VAFA TV from 2 p.m. as Paddy mentioned, to the full half-hour preview. Our other live streaming games on VAFA Media this weekend. Old Scotch and Uni Blues, Old Haileybury and St Bernard. You'll see both those games on the website from 1:55. That is us, gentlemen. Hugo, congratulations. 3 votes for you on your debut here for the love of the game.
Thanks very much, Jake. Very kind, too kind. I don't think I was in the votes today. Well, there's only 3 of us. So.
You're on the podium. I'll say that much. You're on the podium. PG, a pleasure as always. Enjoy Zabs and Collegians. Look forward to your coverage on Saturday.
Thank you, Jace. Where are you this weekend?
I am in Alice Springs.
Fantastic.
I'm off to Alice Springs for the footy on Sunday. That is it from us. We'll catch you again next week for the love of the game.